So next up, podcast listeners, we have the dumbest bill in America. Do we have a lead up, Mr. Producer? Here it is.
Dum 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 dum.
And it is the dumbest bill in America, and it is COVID jails in New York. COVID jails in New York. You heard that correctly. Assemblyman Nick Perry. He's an assemblyman in New York and Albany, but he represents a part of Brooklyn, I believe, in New York City. He has put in Assembly Bill A416, a bill that would create COVID jails and COVID detention camps in New York State. Yes, you heard that correctly. So listen to this. Here is the bill. I'm reading from the bill, podcast listeners. He has put it in for the 2021 and 2022 regular assembly session in New York State. Here's what the bill does. The public health law is amended by adding a new section to read as follows. Removal and detention of cases, contacts, and carriers who are or may be a danger to public health. The provisions of this section shall be utilized in the event that the governor declares a state of emergency due to an epidemic of any communicable disease. Upon determining by clear and convincing evidence that the health of others is or may be endangered by a case, contact, or carrier, or suspected case, contact, or carrier of a contagious disease, that in the opinion of the governor, the opinion, after consultation with the commissioner, may pose an imminent and significant threat to the public health resulting in severe morbidity or high mortality, the governor or his or her delegee, including but not limited to the commissioner or the heads of local health departments, here it comes, may order the removal and or detention of such a person or a group of such persons by issuing a single order, identifying such persons either by name or by a reasonably specific description of the individuals or group being detained. Such person or group of persons shall be detained in a medical facility or other appropriate facility or premises designated by the governor or his or her delegee and complying with subdivision 5 of this section. So, podcast listeners, the governor, if this bill were to pass, could simply say, this group of people pose a public health threat and they will be detained because of the emergency measures that would be given to the governor. And the governor would have no check and balance against the governor or be in the governor's opinion who that person or persons or groups would be. We've already seen with COVID, the huge politicization of COVID as a result of the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated, and how New York is already entering into an early stage of totalitarianism, whereby the current governor of New York is saying, you need a passport. You need not a passport as an illegal immigrant. No, that's fine. What you need is a passport as an unvaccinated person. You need to either prove that you're vaccinated with this passport or you will not be able to function in society. And then this idiot, Assemblyman Nick Perry from New York City, puts Bill A416 in. He's done it several other times, by the way. And we have talked about this before in New York. He was born and raised, this guy, Nick Perry, in Jamaica. Okay. The fourth of 5 sons and a family of 11 children. He completed his secondary education at Kingston College in Jamaica, where he attended a full scholarship and worked for the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union before traveling to the U.S. in the summer of 71. So in other words, this guy is an immigrant himself and comes to the United States for a better life, obviously. He gets elected to the New York General Assembly as an assemblyman and then puts a bill in that says that you can be jailed just because the governor doesn't like you under a health emergency. I mean, this is like truly stupid. So we have a clip from this assemblyman. You're going to love what he says in this clip. It's in an interview, and he talks about how it is equivalent to slavery to put people in jail and ask them to work while in jail to, demonstrate that they can actually do something so that when they get out of jail, they have an opportunity to earn a wage and make a living. And that's the equivalent of slavery, to incarcerate bad people. Remember what his bill does. We'll talk about that in a minute. First up, here is the clip.
Senator Zelna Myrie and myself will be pushing the Prisoner Minimum Wage Act.
What are you seeking for those prisoners?
Well, slavery, we believe, was abolished under the 13th Amendment, but it specifically explains that if you are a prisoner, if you're incarcerated, you are property of the state, and for you, slavery continues because the state can subject you to work with no pay.
So that is Assemblyman Nick Perry talking to a reporter about how, among other things, he wants to pass a bill that makes sure that people who are incarcerated get paid when they're working in prison because of the fact that it's slavery, that they're in prison and that they are working. And it misses the whole point of the reason they're in prison is because they're paying their debt to society. And at least the prisons, many of them, certainly not all, but many of them are trying to teach the prisoners how to actually develop skills so that they are functional when they leave, which is the whole purpose of them making things and learning how to make things. And meanwhile, this same guy, Assemblyman Nick Perry, puts Assembly Bill A416 in that will enslave you under a health emergency because you didn't get your COVID shot. You didn't get your COVID booster shot. You walked into a restaurant and snuck in without a COVID passport. So you're a prisoner in New York under his bill for no reason, no due process whatsoever, by the way, under Assembly Bill 416. And just because they can say so, and they can identify you by group or by individuals. And at the same time, he's upset that people who are currently in prison and are making things aren't being paid the minimum wage because that is the equivalent of slavery. And these are the kind of idiots that we're allowing to come into this country. And that is part of the point of this particular dumbest bill. It's not just that the bill is really dangerous, which is obvious, which are COVID jails in New York State, but the fact that we are allowing immigrants that are complete morons like this guy, and as well as Ilhan Omar, to come into this country and clearly don't have any understanding of the founding of our country and what makes it so great, and the fact that freedom is the most important aspect of our country, including free speech, including disagreeing with people. And yet his bill could put you literally in prison for disagreeing with people under the guise of a health emergency. That's who's coming into this country, and that's who's increasingly getting elected in this country, especially in the blue states. And that is the dumbest bill in America, COVID jails in New York. And that's it for Mark and the Millennials. Thank you for joining Mark and the Millennials. This is Mark Fisher. Thank you to Christopher Hopkins. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Parler, Rumble, and our website. See you next time.